we're going to move to the changes. Okay? So, and we do that in order that you see where the changes come from and the reasons. So, do you explain already in the morning what do we have right now, or what did we have for many years, and now in every of these areas there have been a change. You know, sometimes are very substantial ones, and some of them very very work-related or employment-related changes. So, for instance, we talked briefly in the morning about the skilled worker applications, no? So this is the definition that they have. And meet minimum work experience requirement, and it's 2 years minimum work experience. Have the funds required to settle in Canada. That looks very good. You said, I have $15,000 to live for a year by myself, and if I don't find a job. Have sufficient points. We already talked about the points. And the new thing, employment oriented, no? Applicants are in the 38 high demand occupations such as health, skilled trade, finance, and resources. That's when I make the connection with NOC. No? Then it's 38 occupation, but you split, you subdivide it, I think it's 320 different options that you may have in the national occupation classification or list. And if you have an arranged employment or have already been living legally in Canada for 1 year as a temporary foreign worker or international student. So that's the new 2 elements that they include in the skilled worker. So forget about submitting an application that doesn't have any connection with the NOC or doesn't have employment arrangement or something that is related, because they are not even going to see it. That's the way that Immigration Canada designed in order to reduce the inventory of applications. You know what I mean? So you can even request that your application is sent back to you, and you can review it in basis of these 2 criteria. But according for the last 12 months, you have to meet these criteria. Is that okay? Is that clear? So 38 and arranged employment. That's the big change. The other big change, we already mentioned the experience class, no, Canadian experience class. That change was done in 2008. You know, they reduced the criteria. For instance, they have a secondary school diploma, trade, certificate, or apprenticeships, and have at least 2 years of recent full-time Canadian skilled worker experience. Okay? Applicant can apply for permanent resident status in Canada. That is another big change. And they even went farther in the program and said the application based on employment trust is the one that they privilege. So you can have, as I mentioned, the previous elements, no? But if you introduce the element of the employment, the employer, sorry, said, I want this person, because this person has been working for me for 3 or 4 years, and you know, I depend on him or her for this and that, so you move to this category. And this is what they privilege more. And then they open and they mix it with the student, you know, the international student class that we already explained to you that was in the previous law, no? So this one is a combination of 2 ideas. One is this one, reducing the standards and to link it with an employment and trust, and then to open and to continue open this, what I explained to you about the 10 academic months that you have to graduate, have a job offer, and then you apply for the the permanent resident status, and you have to link it, of course, with NOC. So this is a very employment-oriented. So no, we have now a skilled worker, no? That's a different program, okay? That is still a skilled worker, but related to national occupation classification, okay? And 38 and whatever, this is the two changes. Then we already have in the law before the Canadian experience class. What they did, they introduced these changes. You know, they reduced the standards, and then they also reviewed the standards for a student, because before you have to graduate from something, and now they say 10 academic months is more than okay, and if you have a full-time job. And they did something that also is another variation. Through this program, you can obtain a work permit for up to 2 years if you move from Toronto.
Oh, really?
If you are in Toronto working, you receive max 1 year of work permit. And if you find a job anywhere else outside the GTA, immediately Immigration Canada offers you 2 years of employment or work permit. No? Well, because they want to decentralize, no, all the people in Toronto, which is a good idea, I think. Believe me. Okay, skilled workers is one, Canadian experience class is the other modifications, and this one is the program that obtained or suffered more modifications lately. Is the temporary foreign workers program. Okay? So this is a program that any worker or any settlement worker oppose for the implications of the program. Look, they can stay for a maximum of 4 years, but they can have to be outside Canada for at least 6 years to be allowed to apply again for this program. So do you understand that? So now, what happened now is, or what happened before is that you were allowed to stay up to 2 years, and then you have to go out of Canada, reapply, and come back if you want for another 2 years. They said, no, this is too complicated. So we are going to allow you to stay 4 years, but then you go. And what they are trying to do is to reduce the motivation of someone to come back to Canada. If you go after 4 years, you know, you are not going to come back. You will lose the links with the Canadian society and whatever. What is really happening is that the people are, after 4 years, they have so many links in Canada that they don't want to leave. And they are trying to stay, and the program doesn't allow to apply for temporary resident permit. Okay? And this is the other modification. If the employer, we didn't have that before, break the agreement or didn't or doesn't honor the contract or whatever, because the working conditions and whatever, they will be banned for 2 years to apply to bring more temporary workers from outside. So the problem is that they don't say how they are going to monitor this. You know what I mean? So, because the Ministry of Labor is not involved in this, so basically it will be a report from the worker, and how Immigration Canada is going to check this, we don't know yet. What happened is that in some provinces, like Alberta for instance, they are creating a temporary workers committee, and there is a multi-institutional committee that try to monitor the conditions of the workers, but that's a decision from the province. It's not a decision from the federal government. So if the situation continues like that, what we are suggesting to the Ministry of Immigration in the province is that we try to create something like that that is going to monitor not only this program, but all the programs or temporary workers that come into the province of Ontario. But that's the other changes, though. So we did that change for the skilled worker. They have to be between the 38 high demand occupations, and if they have an arrangement of employment, they love it, you know, and you could be approved almost immediately. That's the promise. The second change in the Canadian Experience class, they reduced the standards to secondary school diploma, 2 years of experience, and if you have an arrangement of employment or trust, you're in. And they also did modifications in the academic part of the program in terms of the 10 months and the 1 year full Canadian experience to apply for permanent resident status. And this one is from 2 years to 4 years with a ban of 6 years. And if the worker, if the employer violate the contract or the conditions or whatever, and he is accused of that or she is accused of that, so they will be banned for 2 years to bring more people from outside. If the person stays illegally in Canada, this category of 6 years doesn't apply. So they must be outside Canada, or at least technically, no? Because some people, they leave and they come back in another ways and whatever. If Immigration Canada doesn't know that they are here, it's fine. But if they know, the 6 years is not possible to apply.